Hey guys, right now I am going to demonstrate 3 different techniques that you can potentially use in your watercolor project. We are going to be using the sheet that I gave you that is just blank to be the background for our project. So you will be painting it however you would like, potentially using one of these techniques that I show you, and then we will be drawing on top of it. So I will show you that part as well. But this I just wanted to let you see. So after you mixed the colors using the color mixing chart, you now have an idea of how the colors interact with one another. So you know that if you don't want like a brownish color, you're probably not going to want to mix like orange and brown together, or yellow and black. So those are a few things you want to think of as you make your background. If you want the colors to be vibrant, not to mix those colors together. However, if you want more dulled down colors like browns and greens, then those might be colors you want to use. So one technique that I want to show you is called wet on wet painting. And what that really means is you are going to take your watercolor brush and dip it into clean water, and we're going to simply paint the surface before we put paint on it with just water. Now the reason for this is it will make your colors flow right across the page. So as you can see, I still have newspaper underneath my paper that I'm working with. You can also just do it on like a kitchen counter that can be cleaned up easily. It just makes things a little bit more neat as you're working. So for this, I'm gonna have a little bit of fun and make almost like a tie-dye effect by using all of the colors. So I'm gonna start and I'm gonna add some red, and I'm just putting it on in random brush strokes, and you can see it start to bleed, like over on this side, it's bleeding over because of the water that's on there. So now I'm gonna think of colors that are near red on the color wheel or blend well with it. So one would be orange, that's right next to it on the color spectrum. So if I start adding some orange over here, and see, I'm going off the page a little bit because this is newspaper, so it doesn't really matter. Might add a little bit more red in this area to make those colors mix, to make a nice red-orange. And then maybe up here in the top corner, I'm gonna put some purple or violet, either one works. And that will mix with the red nicely. We know violet and orange don't necessarily make the best color. That's why I'm gonna try to keep it away from the orange and just with the red. Now the good thing about watercolor is you can always layer, like once the colors are dry, if you want to add more, you can. So now I have my orange, and if your paper starts to dry out a little bit, you can always add a little bit more water for that wet on wet effect. So I'm gonna add some yellow. And unfortunately, the yellow I have is a little bit contaminated, but that's all right. We'll work with it. Has a little bit of green in it, but I think that'll go away. So now I'm gonna add some yellow here with my orange, and I'm gonna overlap it a little bit because I want to. You can overlap it with the red. Nice bright yellow there. And some of you might have been noticing that your brushes are like shedding a little bit. Some of the hairs come out. That is quite all right, because once the watercolor dries, that will come off. So now I'm gonna go for some green. And I'm gonna mix some of it with that yellow that's still wet. So I get a nice yellow green. And then I'm gonna add some blue. Remember, the more water you add to your watercolors, the more like faded it's going to look. And then if you have less water added to your brush, it'll be more vibrant because it's more concentrated then. I can even go into the yellow there because we know now that yellow and blue makes green. Now, what can I mix blue with? I'm gonna go back to my violet. Mix that in. And I wanna go with where I started here and actually add some red to it. Now, of course, I did rainbow, but you can do wet on wet with any colors that really like mix together well. You could, blend from just blue to like a lighter blue, blue to green to yellow. It's really up to you. So that's just my little like wet on wet, fun kind of tie-dye looking area. The next technique that I am going to show you is actually both of these use things that you should, sorry, that's one of the hazards of doing this while at school. Both of these will use things that you probably have at home. They're like household objects that a lot of people have. So I'm gonna go ahead and for one of these sections, I am going to go all cool colors, which is purple or violet, blue, and green. Those are the cool colors. And they're called cool colors because they are cool toned. So I'm blending them together a bit. I'm going in kind of a diagonal pattern. It really doesn't matter. I'm just having fun with this right now. And then I'm going to go for some green, the last of my cool colors. And then when you have the mix in between, you get those nice tertiary colors, like blue-green here, and I have blue-violet where the other two mix. So I'm going to do this, and I want to make sure that my paint is nice and wet. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit more water on top for this. And what I'm going to do is sprinkle salt on it. And I know that sounds weird. You want to make sure you do this when your paint is still wet. Mine is a little on the dry side, so I'm going to add more water. And you're probably thinking, why is Ms. Peller putting salt on her paint? I know it seems crazy, but it's actually going to create a cool effect when it's dry. So now I'm going to do another technique, which also uses household objects, and I'm going to use the warm colors and get some of that extra salt off of there. So my warm colors are going to be red, orange, and yellow. And it's easy to remember the warm colors because they are kind of like warm like the sun. And the cool colors are cool like the ocean. That's one way to remember them. Add some orange in. I'm gonna add orange on both sides. Now you can take a lot more time when you're painting. I'm doing this quickly because I just want to show you guys these different techniques. So I'm going very quickly. See, as I add more water and stuff, they're bleeding into each other, which is totally fine. That's what we want to do. And then lastly, I'm going to add my yellow, my last warm color, sunny looking color. All right, and like I said, we are going to use a household object, which in this case is plastic wrap. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to take the plastic wrap and I wanna put it on my wet paint and kind of scrunch it up in different areas. And I'm going to leave it there until my paint is dry. So you can see it's like this, because what this is going to do is leave a cool print on my my watercolor. So this is actually a really cool technique to have a fun background. So as you can see, my like wet on wet is starting to dry a bit. And remember, I said those hairs that shed, see, I can just brush them off once it dries. Now this is gonna take a little bit to dry, but I will show you what it looks like when it's all dry in one of my next videos.